Hello my beautiful crafty friends, I am Katya with Lunar Sun Creations, and today we are going to be making some cards out of some very textured backgrounds. So before I get into showing you what I'm going to do, I want to show you how I've made these backgrounds because I just can't help myself and I want to make some more backgrounds because it's what I do. It's my favorite thing, making backgrounds. So I'm going to show you how I make them and then we will make some cards with them. I wanted to get a little messy today. My plan is to make some like, what do you call them? The ink blot kind of tests. What are they called? I'll put it up on the screen as soon as I figure out what they are called. So really easy. All I'm doing is taking a little palette knife and I've got a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock and I've just scored it right down the center. So I'm just going to work on one side. So I'm literally just going to helter-skelter put a bunch of the paste in some random places. I want it to be a little bit thick, so I'm okay if it's not all smooth. I like there to be a little bit of texture to it. So I'm just going to use, that was the Terre Verte. So like a nice like bright green. And then I'm going to use the lime green, so I'm going to add a little bit just kind of right over the different parts of it so that they blend a little bit. And then I'm going to add maybe some chartreuse. No, I think I'm going to add some gold. Got a metallic gilding polish. I'm going to use that as my gold. Just going to clean off my palette knife first. And I'm just going to put down some gold. You want to make sure to put a little bit, at least a little bit right near the crease. All right, that looks pretty good. And then I'm literally just going to fold this in half. You might want to put a piece of paper underneath it because some of it might smush out. And then I'm just going to kind of maneuver it with my fingers. And then when you open it up, there is some gorgeous texture there. So I'm going to do a few of these and then we are going to cut bits and pieces out of them to use on some cards. Okay, I'm going to do one with ocean blue, turquoise, a tiny bit of orchid, and again some of that gold. You know what, I think it's gorgeous with just the 3 colors. I don't think I'm going to add any gold to this one. So let's give it a fold and a smoosh. Oh, I just love it. I want all of the pieces to be covered. So I'm going to add just a little bit more paste. Now you can do this with watercolors or acrylic paint or even alcohol ink, whatever medium you desire, or you could take ink refills and a little bit of just white paste and make your own colors. Okay, let's give that another fold. Oh, haha. Oh, beautiful. Doesn't that look so cool? They all kind of like blend together and I love that texture. All right, so I'm gonna do one with some red and gold. It might not look like much right now, but trust me, it will. Once we make it into cards, I promise it's gonna look awesome. Okay, so this is how they turned out once dry. They all turned out very different, even when I used the same colors. I actually really like the blank space. I kind of wish I'd done a little bit more blank space on some. I was so intent on covering everything up. No, I wish I had left some more like that. But I love all the like veining that you get doing this technique. So now I'm going to play with them and turn them into some cards. So my first idea involves embossing folders. So I've got this really cool kind of birch tree embossing folder from We Are Memory Keepers. So I'm going to run a piece of my texture background through this embossing folder, and then I'm also going to run a piece of plain white cardstock through the same embossing folder. So here is just a white cardstock panel embossed with that birch tree folder. And then I also embossed the green piece, and then I cut it out in an oval shape, and then I've got a black backing oval as well. So now I'm going to take my white ink pad and just kind of lightly go over the top of the trees, so the raised bits of the embossing folder. Okay, so that brings out the tree shapes, but I don't feel like it's quite white enough. So I'm also going to go over that with just the raised areas. I'm going to go over with a white Posca pen. There, so now the trees stand out a little bit more. The white ink is also a good way to mute a background if a background is a little bit too bright. Okay, so I just added a couple little strips of the green background to the top and bottom just to add a little extra interest, and just finished it off with a very simple sentiment strip. Okay, and then just to show you, here's another variation of that same kind of thing. Okay, and for card 2, I'm also going to use an embossing folder. I've got this beautiful one from Simon Says Stamp called Tall Pines. So I'm going to use this one. So I'm just going to emboss one of the pieces of green. Okay, so I've got 2 panels embossed. This one is embossed with the tall pine trees. And then I took this piece and embossed it with, what is this one called? Elegant. A Sizzix Tim Holtz 3D embossing folder. So I'm going to try 2 different things with these. I'm going to use just a Metallics Deco Art Gold paint for one, and I'm going to brayer it on. So I'm just going to put a little bit. I'm going to move this out of the way so I don't get it all gross. And I'm just going to brayer over the top, and in theory it should pick up just the raised parts. Now because it's a 3D folder, that means there's like various kind of impressions and depressions. So you might have to go over it with a finger as well. Okay, and then with the other one, I think I'm going to try using some Rub and Buff. Yeah, you get a bit more control when you're doing it with your finger. Oh, and I say that and then get way too much on that part. Okay, there we go. This is how that card turned out. I just added a simple joy sentiment with black cardstock for the shadow and then gold embossed for the word. And then this is a card that I did off screen, kind of using the same technique with the brayering on the gold paint, and then I just added a simple Merry Christmas sentiment and a few little pieces of green, kind of like foliage, that's the word I'm looking for. Okay, so that is the second way. My third idea is to take a nesting die of any shape and cut out a whole bunch of different pieces. So I've alternated, I've gone with one with the pattern background or the textured background, and then a black, and then a textured background and white, and then textured and black. So I'm gonna layer all of those together, glue them all together, and then I'm gonna cut them into quarters. I decided to use black instead of white in the center. I just liked the way that looked better. So now we are going to cut it into 4 pieces. So I've just given myself some guidelines on the back because I don't think my paper trimmer will go through this many layers. So I'm using my scissors, and I can already tell that I don't think this is completely dry. I probably should have waited, but I'm committed now. Are they gonna move? Okay, I'm gonna wait until this is actually dry and then cut it into 4 pieces. And then all I'm gonna do is put it into the 4 corners of a card base and then have a sentiment in the center. Okay, so I just added a sentiment that says, always jingle all the way because nobody likes a half-assed jingler. So true. Those half-assed jinglers. So this is how it came out. It is slightly janky on the edges just because it's so thick. There's so many layers that trying to trim the edge was, it's not a perfect trim job on the edge. However, I still think it looks cool. And, you know, you can still work with an idea like this, you know? So that's that card. My next idea is to simply cut out very simple shapes out of the textures. So as an example, this one here, it's hard to tell in this picture actually, it's hard to tell on camera is what I meant to say. So what I did here was I took a whole bunch of just 1 inch by 1 inch squares. These are a little bit bigger than 1 inch, but just so you get an idea, and cut them all in half so that I had a whole pile of triangles. Okay, and then on a piece of white cardstock, I just started kind of arranging them like this and gluing them down so that they formed a tree shape. So it's okay, so just continued on until it made a shape like this. I fussy cut around it and laid it on some black. And then I added some brads and chain to kind of make it look like garland was my plan. And then I just ripped a piece of paper and used some, like a crystal paste to make it look like snow and added a little bit to the top of the tree. Just did some like snow splatter, and that was that card. And then I kind of, another take on that idea. This one, I had this piece left over from the blue, so I kind of just cut a wave, like a snow bank in the distance, and then cut another one here in the foreground. I put 1 strip of foam tape underneath here so that there's like a little space right here, and then just kind of layered trees. So I cut some that were just straight up triangles, and then I did use a die as well for some of the trees just so they didn't all look exactly the same. And then I just kind of layered them, you know, so it looks like there's like depth to it. So a really simple card, but I think it actually looks quite cool. I might do a little bit of white splatter. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so there is idea 4. My last idea is to take a die that has some holes in it, like symmetrical kind of holes. I'm going to use the layered plaid cover die B from Altenew. However, any die that has a lot of holes in it will work for this. So I'm going to die cut this. I'm going to use the red one for this one. Okay, so once I've got that cut out, I am going to take some ribbon. I've got some red, some black with red stitching, and some white. And I'm just going to kind of weave it through the holes in this die cut. Okay, so once you have your ribbon kind of threaded through how you want it to go, I'm just going to put something heavy on top of this. I've just got tiny little dots of glue on each of these end pieces. Okay, so I'm just going to let it dry completely. I'm going to put something heavy on it. Then I'm going to trim off all of the excess ribbon and put it down onto my card front. Okay, so I've got my plaid die on my card base. I have cut some poinsettias from this die. I think I got it from AliExpress. I can't remember. I've had it for quite a while. I think this one I got last year. And then I've got some holly leaves that I cut from this Sizzix die. And it is called Holiday Greens. Okay, so I've cut a couple layers and put them together already, and then I've got a gem that's still drying. Okay, so I'm gonna add these onto my card now. Yeah, I might use some foam tape, I think. I think I'm gonna pop it up. Okay, and there is my finished card. At the last minute I decided to add just a couple of the red bits back in. It might be too much, I don't know, but for now, that's what's happening, just for fun. All right, so that is a lot of cards using a lot of different techniques. So we've got our plaid, we've got our cutting the backgrounds into like shapes. We've got our layering them with a nesting die. And then we've got our embossing folder with the gold paint or the rub and buff over top. And then we have got the embossing folder with the white pigment ink over top of the raised part of the embossing, and then just kind of like framed. Okay, so a lot of cards. I'm very happy with the way all of these turned out. I hadn't planned on doing quite this many cards, but it's just kind of the way it turns out. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you will give some of these techniques a try. I will see you again very soon. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I'm going to continue to play. I think I'm going to do some watercoloring. Thank you so much for watching, and be kind to one another. Have an awesome, awesome day. Bye!